Kasrkin shock troops. I stand, surrounded by the dead, the dying, mired in mud. Every inch of my body screams under the fatigue, the cramps, the pain. We have stood in these trenches for days, firing when they charge, snapping off our shots with discipline, but with a desperation brought on by the constant waves of their assault. We can hear them shouting, preparing their next one. The orcs. They are coming again. They are coming. We've spent days here, unsupported, uncared for, holding, standing. It's all we can do. Stand and fire, fire and stand, rinse and repeat. The no man's land between us is piled with their dead, and yet they still come. Reinforcements were promised 5 hours ago. There won't be anything for them to reinforce if they don't pull their fingers out. Then, inevitably, they arrive. The orcs charge again. But this will be the last time. There are too many of them, and too few of us. We cut down the greenskin line troopers, as we have for a score of assaults. But behind them, coming out of the dusty, dirty hellscape, armoured orcs. They're elites, and our lasgun fire barely scratches them, taking between 5 to 10 of us to concentrate down one alone. They lurch towards us in a slow run. They will hit, and we will die. Curse Central Command. Curse them. Where are our... My mind goes blank and my mouth yawns open. My jaw drops at the spectacle I now see before me. Lasfire now strikes the orcs, but it starts to cut them in half, blowing huge chunks off them, melting them in their armour. Those aren't our guns, not standard las guns. They cannot be. Then I near soil myself as a huge hand clasps my shoulder. But it's not green. As I flick my eyes to it, it's brown. And I follow the hand up the arm and into the eyes of a man. A man a foot taller than me, both wide and tall it seems. His visor is up as he winks at me. Hogging the best spot, soldier. My turn, eh? And I stumble as his arm firmly moves me backwards. I stagger and sit on the blocks at the bottom of my trench. Then I look up and down the line as they fire in unison, and the orcs die. Our reinforcements. They have heavy carapace armour, hotshot lasguns. All of them are 6'5" and more. Kasrkin. Sweet holy Emperor on terror. They have sent Kasrkin. The orc heavies are cut in half, but the boys behind charge hard. They are about to hit the lines when I see a beautiful sight. A holy sight. As the Kasrkin launch themselves over the top and countercharge them. The greenskin filth almost seem happy about this for a second, screaming their bellows at the shock troops as they charge to meet them. But the orcs are not able to bully boy the Kasrkin, who are near their own size, sometimes stronger. And the Kasrkin are armed with power swords, flails, and all sorts of melee antiques or rare weaponry. And they cut the orcs and stomp them into the ground before ducking back into the trenches, ready for the next attack. They slaughtered them. They slaughtered greenskins in close combat. The same man who replaced me in the line. He jumps back into the trench next to me. He beams down at me with his near-toothless grin. So many little enamelled henges lost in previous battles. His body must be a patchwork of scars to match his face, his mouth. He simply states, "Okay, soldier, it's going to get hairy here now. Main push from the scum, so we've been told. That's why we're here. Best you take your lads back. Get a breather. We might need your help later, eh?" I nod. Although I am pretty certain nothing the orcs throw at them will make much odds. For they are the best of humanity, the best of Cadia. And wherever they fight, they bring back the old war cry. Unholy Emperor. It brings a rush to just hear it. Not screamed in panic, not shouted like some talisman, but torn from their very hearts. A statement of fact. Cadia stands! Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the factions, faces, and units of the Warhammer 40k setting, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace. There is only time for war. Don't forget, we have a natural history and mythology channels now. Links in the description. Now, let us proceed. For today, we shall be taking a brief look into some of the most ardent, dangerous, and skilled of all the non-enhanced warriors of the Imperium, the Cadian Kasrkin shock troops. The Kasrkin hail from the dead world of Cadia, previously the jewel in the crown of the defences around the Eye of Terror. Yet, their military traditions did not end with the destruction of their homeworld. For Cadia was a prolific war world and sent regiment after regiment out into the universe, into the wars of the Imperium across the stars. Now, in effect, the Kasrkin would seem to be very similar to the Tempestus Scions, the shock troops of the human non-enhanced warriors. Yet the difference comes from the way they are found, trained and fielded. For the Scions are almost universally despised by the standard troops of the regiments of the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard. Whereas the Kasrkin are well-respected squads amongst these forces. Strange, one might think, as they perform an almost identical role. But the devil, as they say, is always in the detail. For the Tempestus Scions are orphans raised in select training camps known as the Schola Progenium. Orphans of high-ranked officers of the Guard, they are hard-bitten fanatics, as brutally trained and indoctrinated as the Sisters of Battle, the priesthood, or even the commissariat. They are a cut above, in their eyes, and in those of the upper command, and they let it show. Cold and stern warriors without pity or mercy, they will execute their own as fast as the enemy, should they find them wanting in their estimations. Yet the Kasrkin are utterly different, as they are homegrown, so to put it. They are not seen by their brothers-in-arms as aloof, uppity, or especially coddled, like the Scions, and they are taken from the rank-and-file soldiery of the Cadian army. The Kasrkin are a formation akin to grenadiers of Napoleonic period armies. They are identified while in training as a white shield, and only the most able, large and aggressive warriors are chosen. Now originally, the designation of grenadier was used for a soldier of earth that had the strength to hurl the quite heavy early grenades, so the largest and strongest soldiers were chosen. As technology developed and the grenades themselves became slightly smaller, lighter, size became less of a requirement for their effective use. Yet the grenadier units were still made up of the most bulky and violent of the army's soldiers, and they were used as shock troops in the line, where cavalry and other true shock troops could not be used. The forlorn hope being the first units to charge a fortification and attempt to gain an ingress, a bridgehead that could then be the entry point to the entire attacking force. Wherever the fighting was hardest and most cruel, this is where the grenadiers were placed, able to run rampant over enemy formations made up of men of more normal size or skill. And being hit by a line of grenadiers was a thing of horror, as they would tear through the normal soldiery in swift order. And the Kasrkin are no different, some 39 millennia later. For Kasrkin were named after the defensive bastilles that dotted the entire surface of Cadia. Yet they were culled from the white shields. Those of the right height, weight, aggression and skill would then be placed amongst the standard Cadian shock troop units. A Kasrkin would then rise through the ranks of the shock troops until they had proven themselves without a shadow of a doubt. For the Kasrkin are not just large, not just elite. They are the most hardened of warriors outside of the illumines of the Schola or the Astartes themselves. To face a Kasrkin is to face a warrior that will never be bowed, never be broken, even in the face of demonic attack and assault from horrors like the bugs, the Tyranids, or even the Drukhari. They stand. But standing is not enough. The Kasrkin are always pushing forward, always attacking, always bringing the fight to the enemy where they least expect it. And thus they are armed and armoured far better than even veteran squads. Like their Tempestus equivalents, they have carapace armour and the very best of weaponry. Melters, melty, plasma guns, microbeads in the air for communication, respirators, even the Imperial uplifting primer. They have it all. But they also wield the hotshot or hellgun las weapons. Far more dangerous than even the standard las rifle of the Guard, it can even threaten, if not outright defeat and slay, those who wear power armour. Chaos Astartes, fallen sisters. Any who wear power armour need to treat these men as a concern, where usually such monsters of battle can almost ignore most Guard squads. Not so the Kasrkin. It is in their being raised from the ranks, having fought alongside their brothers to earn their positions, that makes them more like the brothers you wish to come to save you when everything goes sideways, instead of the preening elites that the Tempestus scions are seen to be. They are not above the Cadian regiments, they are merely their ultimate expression. The only real difference might be that the scions are more likely to be deployed via grav shoots. Not so the Cadian Kasrkin, as far as I can see, who are almost universally deployed in the more standard way. Now some might question their continued existence. Surely, Cadia is gone. Cadia no longer stands. Yet this does not account for the millions of them who are scattered across the battlefields of the Imperium, and their traditions are being maintained, no matter where they now call home. While a creed lives to lead them, while they still have their doctrines in place, while they still march for the Imperium, then none can gainsay the one statement. Cadia stands! And something else that everyone has forgotten or ignored. Every single warrior of, or trained by, Cadians is now lit by the fires of a new and deeper, truer zeal. For there are few things more motivating than revenge. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. A reminder that we have 2 new channels now, links in the description. Give us a like and a share if you enjoyed the video. And to support our ongoing efforts against boredom, do consider joining our Patreon. Thank you for your precious time. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.